I couldn't believe the sheer amount of effort I'd poured into her birthday. It had been my vision from the start. Every meticulous detail, every hard-earned dollar, every agonizing sleepless night spent in careful orchestration. I wanted it to be an absolute masterpiece for her, my wife, the woman around whom I had meticulously constructed my entire world for the past 4 years. The venue was nothing short of opulent, a downtown rooftop boasting a skyline view that stole the breath from your very lungs. I'd commissioned a 5-tiered cake, a decadent fusion of chocolate and vanilla, her undisputed favorite. There was even a champagne tower, straight out of a movie scene, with glasses stacked so high they shimmered under the twinkling fairy lights I'd paid extra for. I'd even ordered flowers flown in from halfway across the globe, vibrant exotic orchids, because she'd once casually mentioned they were her dream bouquet. It had cost a king's ransom, but I didn't care. This was her night, and I wanted her to feel like the undisputed center of the universe. I stood there, impeccably dressed in my finest suit, watching her laugh and circulate amongst our 60 guests, friends, family, faces we'd known our entire lives. I was filled with a weary pride, a profound sense of accomplishment. She looked breathtaking in the dress I'd chosen for her months ago, her hair catching the light just so. This is it, I thought. This is the very essence of marriage, making her happy. Then she took the microphone. I anticipated something sweet, perhaps a heartfelt thank you for all my efforts. Instead, she raised her glass and began to speak of Damien Rivera. "My guiding light," she declared, her voice ringing loud and clear above the hum of the crowd, "the one who has been there for me through my hardest times." I froze, my smile locked in place, uncertain of what else to do. Damien, the guy she worked with, the one she'd mentioned a handful of times, always with such a dismissive tone that I'd never given him a second thought. My chest constricted, but I willed myself to breathe, to wait. Perhaps she'd transition to me next. But no. Instead, she turned to me, a sly smirk playing on her lips, as if she were about to unveil some grand prank. She extended a gift bag, small and light, and said, "For you, darling." People chuckled, finding it endearing. I opened it, half expecting a watch, a tie, something mundane. But no. Inside lay a neatly folded designer black t-shirt. I pulled it out, held it up, and there, emblazoned in bold white letters, was the word "divorced." The crowd fell silent for a heartbeat, then a few nervous titters rippled through. She grinned as if it were the funniest thing on earth, as if she'd just won a comedy award. My hands trembled as I stared at the word "divorced." 4 years of marriage, all the sacrifices, all the nights I'd burned the midnight oil paying bills or meticulously planning events like this, and she thought this was witty, hilarious. My throat burned. I felt every pair of eyes on me waiting for my reaction. I could have screamed, I could have thrown that shirt in her face and walked out right then and there. But I didn't. I set the bag down, reached into my pocket, and pulled out the Cartier bracelet I'd bought her as her real birthday gift. It was gold, sleek, impossibly expensive, something I'd saved for, knowing she'd adore it. I laid it on the table beside the cake, right where everyone could see it. No words, no fuss. I simply turned and walked away. The air hit me like a physical blow as I stepped outside, sharp and cold, but I didn't stop. I heard the chatter behind me die down, the clinking of glasses, the murmur of confusion. I kept walking, my dress shoes clicking against the pavement, my heart pounding so hard I thought it might shatter my ribs. I didn't know where I was going yet, but I knew one thing for certain. I wasn't going back in there. Not for her, not for anyone. That t-shirt wasn't just a joke, it was a declaration, and I wasn't about to stand there and accept it. The night air slammed into me hard as I burst from the rooftop party, my tie flapping loosely in the wind. I hadn't gone 10 paces before I stopped, my hands clenching into fists. I'd left the bracelet on the table, her birthday gift, the one I'd spent months picking out, the one I'd envisioned her wearing with that wide smile she used to give me. It lay there, abandoned, like some trophy for her little trick, and that t-shirt, "divorced," kept flashing in my mind, those white letters burning holes in my vision. I couldn't leave it like that. I couldn't let her have the last word, not after she'd humiliated me in front of everyone we knew. So I turned, my feet moving before my brain could catch up, carrying me back through the glass doors, past the bewildered valet who barely had time to open his mouth to ask for my ticket. The party noise hit me again. Laughter, clinking glasses, some upbeat song she'd picked for the playlist. I didn't look at anyone, not her friends, not mine, not the servers weaving through the crowd with trays of champagne. I went straight for that table, where the cake stood, the flowers, and the bracelet gleaming under the lights. She was still up front chatting with Damien, her back to me, probably thinking I'd slunk away like a wounded dog. I grabbed the bracelet, the cool metal sliding into my palm, and shoved it back into my pocket. No one said a word. A few heads turned, eyes widened, but no one stopped me. Maybe they were too shocked. Maybe they just didn't care. Either way, I was done. I walked out again, this time for good. The valet already had my car pulled around, the black sedan I'd bought 2 years ago, one of the few things I'd insisted on when she'd pushed for that expensive SUV she wanted. I slid into the driver's seat, slammed the door, and just sat there for a minute staring at the dashboard. My phone vibrated in my pocket. I ignored it. The engine roared to life, and I pulled out into the street, the city lights blurring past me as if they held no significance. 5 minutes later, it started, the first call. My phone lit up on the passenger seat, her name glowing on the screen. I didn't pick up. It rang, died down, then lit up again and again. By the time I hit the highway, it was a nonstop hum after hum, her name stacking up in missed call notifications. I glanced at it once, just enough to see the number climb. 10 calls, 20, 50. I just kept driving, the road stretching ahead of me, dark and empty, my hands gripping the steering wheel so tight my knuckles were white. What did she want? An apology? Another laugh? An explanation for why she thought handing me that t-shirt in front of everyone was okay? I didn't care. Not anymore. The phone kept ringing relentlessly, as if she thought she could wear me down if she just tried hard enough. I pulled into my usual parking spot outside our apartment, no, my apartment now, and checked the screen. 157 missed calls, all from her. I turned the phone off, the silence hitting me like a wave. I sat in the dark, the engine ticking as it cooled, and something clicked inside me. It wasn't just about the party. It wasn't just about walking out. That t-shirt, those calls, her thanking Damien instead of me. That was the end of us. Years of hard work, years of putting her first, years of thinking that if I just tried harder, she'd see me the way I saw her. And for what? To be the punchline of her big night? I grabbed my keys and got out, the cold biting at my face again. The apartment building loomed over me, quiet and familiar, but it didn't feel like home anymore. It felt like a shell, something I'd outgrown without even realizing it. I didn't know what came next, where I'd go, what I'd do, but I knew one thing. I wasn't answering those calls. Not tonight, not ever. I'd walked out of the party, sure, but I'd walked out of the marriage too, and she could call all she wanted. I was already gone. I woke the next morning on the sunken sofa in Theo's spare bedroom, a place that smelled faintly of old coffee and dust. My jacket was crumpled on the floor, my tie slung over a chair like a dead snake. I'd driven straight to his place after the party, my phone still off, those 157 missed calls locked away in the dark. Theo hadn't asked many questions when I showed up, just opened the door, handed me a beer, and let me crash. Now, sunlight sliced through the blinds, striping the bare walls, and I lay there, staring at the ceiling, trying to figure out what the hell had just happened to my life. Theo shuffled in, his hair a mess, carrying 2 mugs of coffee. He set one on the table beside me, steam rising lazily, and sank into the armchair that groaned under his weight. "You don't come back from that," he said, his voice low and certain, as if he'd already mulled it all over. I didn't answer immediately. I just picked up the coffee, the scalding warmth seeping through the mug, and let his words sink in. He was right. I'd known it the second she'd handed me that t-shirt, divorced, like it was some clever little gift. But it wasn't just about the t-shirt. It was about everything that came before it. All the little pieces I'd ignored because I loved her, because I thought that's how it was supposed to be when you were married. I took a sip, the coffee bitter and strong, and all the pieces started to click in my head. The way she'd asked me to move to a different city for her job, promising it would be worth it. I'd left a good position, packed up our life, and followed. Then there were the promotions I'd turned down because they'd mean less time at home, and she hadn't liked that. "We're a team," she'd said, and I'd nodded, thinking it made sense. The vacations, too. I'd skip them, working extra shifts so she could chase her dreams, fly to conferences, build her career. I never complained. I'd seen it as my job to support her, to be the one standing steady while she shone. And she did shine. People loved her, her charm, her laugh, the way she could light up a room. I'd loved that about her, too. But last night, under those twinkling lights I'd paid for, she'd been lighting up someone else. Damien Rivera, her guiding light, not me. I set the mug down, my hand still shaking from the night before, and looked at Theo. "I gave her everything," I said, my voice hoarse, as if it hadn't quite woken up yet. He nodded, leaning back in his chair. "Yeah, man, and she gave you a t-shirt." It stung, but it was true. I thought about the party again. 60 people, all watching her toast Damien, all seeing her hand me that bag. I wondered what they thought. Were they laughing because they agreed with her? Did they pity me? Or did they just not care? I'd tried so hard for so long to make her happy, to make us work, and in one night, she'd turned me into a joke. The spare room felt smaller, the walls closing in, and I stood up, walking over to the window. Outside, the city was waking up, horns honking, people rushing to work. My life used to be like that too, busy, purposeful, moving forward. Now it was just me, standing still, holding a coffee mug and a bruised ego. Theo watched me, sipping his own drink, not pushing me to talk. He didn't have to. We'd been friends since college. He knew me better than most. "What now?" he asked, finally breaking the silence. I didn't have an answer, not yet. But as I stared out at the skyline, something shifted. I wasn't that guy who waited anymore, the one who nodded and smiled while she called the shots. That guy had died last night. The bracelet was still in my pocket. I felt its weight against my leg, a reminder of what I'd taken back. Maybe Theo was right. You don't come back from that. But maybe you don't have to. Maybe you just keep going, figuring out who you are without the weight of someone else's expectations. I turned to him, my jaw set. "I'm tired of being expendable," I said. He raised his mug. "Good. About damn time." The new path begins. I didn't turn my phone on for 2 days after the party. Those 157 missed calls waited, but I wasn't ready to face them, or her. I stayed at Theo's, sleeping on that creaky couch, waking to the low hum of his coffee maker in the kitchen. It was quiet, simple, and for the first time in years, I didn't feel like I had to be somewhere or do something for someone else. But I couldn't hide forever. I needed to sort out my life, to sever the ties of the marriage, and I wasn't going to let it drag on any longer. So I made a call. Not to her, but to Clara Mendez, a lawyer I'd heard about from a guy at work. She was sharp, tough, the kind of woman who didn't mince words. We met at her downtown office, a small space with big windows and stacks of files on every surface. She didn't smile much, just shook my hand and got straight to business. "What's your objective?" she asked, a pencil hovering over her notepad. I leaned back in the chair, the bracelet still in my pocket like a stone I couldn't shake. "I want out," I said. "Clean, quiet, no drama." She nodded, as if she'd heard it 100 times. "Good. I don't do messy divorces. It's a waste of everyone's time." I liked her already. I told her about the party, the t-shirt, Damien, everything. She didn't flinch, just took notes and asked questions. How long we'd been married, what we owned, who paid for what. I told her I'd covered most of it, the apartment, the cars, the party itself. Clara raised an eyebrow but didn't comment. By the end of the hour, she had a plan. "We'll file quietly," she said. "No public spectacle. You keep yours, she keeps hers. If she fights it, we deal with it." I trusted her. She had that edge, like she'd seen too many marriages unravel to care about the theatrics. For her, it was business. For me, it was survival. I left her office feeling lighter, as if a weight I hadn't known I was carrying had been lifted. That night, I went back to the apartment. Our apartment, though it no longer felt like ours. She wasn't there, probably at her sister's or some friend's place, licking her wounds after I hadn't picked up. I didn't care where she was. I just wanted my space back. The next morning, I went to work. I'd taken a day off after the party, but now I was ready to dive headfirst into it. My job wasn't glamorous, project management for a tech firm, but I was good at it. I walked into the office, past the cubicles and the coffee machine, and sat at my desk. My inbox was a mess, but I didn't mind. I started sorting through emails, flagging urgent ones, setting up meetings. It felt good to focus on something I could control. Around noon, my boss, Gregory, walked in. He was a big guy with a booming voice, always wearing ties that didn't quite match his shirts. "You're back," he said, leaning against my desk. "Heard you had a rough weekend." I shrugged. Something like that. He didn't push, just tapped the folder he was holding. "Got a new client, complicated one. Want to take it on?" I looked up at him. Normally, I'd hesitate. Big clients meant long hours, and she always hated when I worked late, but she wasn't here anymore. "Yeah," I said. "I'll take it." Gregory grinned. "That's what I like to hear." The rest of the day flew by. I immersed myself in the project, a startup needing a complete system overhaul, and lost myself in the details, spreadsheets, timelines, budgets. It was messy, complex, and exactly what I needed. By the time I walked out of the office, the sun had set and my head felt clear. I stopped responding to her messages that week. They'd started after the call. Short ones at first, like, "Where are you?" and "We need to talk." Then longer, rambling ones about how she hadn't meant it, how it was just a joke. I didn't reply. Clara had the papers ready by Friday and I signed them in her office, my hand steady on the pen. It wasn't about revenge, not even about her. It was about me, about taking back the life I'd let slip away. Gregory called me into his office later that day. "You're just tearing it up," he said. "Keep this up and we're talking promotion." I nodded, a small smile touching my lips. For the first time in years, I felt like I was moving forward. Not for her, not for us, but for myself. Forging my own path. I started running every morning before sunrise when the city was still asleep and the streets were mine. It wasn't a planned thing, just woke up at Theo's one day, my head buzzing with everything, and decided I needed to move. I pulled on old sneakers, a t-shirt, and shorts I hadn't worn in years, and hit the pavement. That first mile was brutal, my lungs burning, my legs like lead, and I thought about turning back. But I didn't. I just kept going, one foot in front of the other, the cold air biting at my face. By the time I got back to Theo's, sweat was running down my neck and my chest was heaving like I'd just fought a war. It hurt, but it was good, like I was shaking off the pieces of the man I used to be. I'd been stagnant for so long, waiting for her to notice me, to need me, that I'd forgotten what it felt like to push myself. After that, it became routine. Up at 5, out the door at 5:15, running in the dark until the sky bled blue mile after mile. I shed the weight of it all, the party, the t-shirt, the years of saying yes when I should have said no. That week, I moved out of Theo's and back into the apartment for good. She still wasn't there, and I didn't ask where she'd gone. Clara had already served her the divorce papers by then, so maybe she was hiding out, plotting her next move. I didn't care. I started changing things, tossing out the decorative pillows she'd picked, the ones I'd always hated, and replacing them with a simple gray throw. I rearranged the furniture, making the living room into something that felt like mine. It wasn't just about the space, it was about me. I set up a corner by the window with a small desk, a lamp, and a stack of notebooks. I started writing things down, ideas, plans, things I'd always wanted to do but never found the time or the courage. Next were vision boards, tacked to the wall with photos of places I wanted to see, projects I wanted to tackle. I wasn't just redecorating a room, I was rebuilding myself. Work became intense, but I thrived on it. The client Gregory gave me was a nightmare, demanding, nitpicky, constantly changing their mind, but I handled it. Late nights at the office bled into early morning runs, then back to my desk with coffee in hand. I was tired, sure, but it was a good tired, the kind that came from doing something for myself. One day I got a call from Sasha. a kid I'd met at a networking event a year ago. He was young, mid-20s, with big ideas and no clue how to execute them. "I've got this startup," he said, his voice fast and excited. "My buddy Omar and I need help." I met them at a downtown diner, the kind with sticky tables and waitresses who called you honey. Sasha had wild hair and a laptop covered in stickers. Omar was quieter, sketching numbers on a napkin. They pitched me their idea, a delivery app for small businesses, something local, something real. It was raw, but it had potential. "I'm not a tech guy," I told them, "but I can help you get organized, put a plan together." They grinned like I just handed them $1 million. I started meeting with them once a week, going over budgets, timelines, helping them wade through the chaos. It wasn't paying work, but it didn't matter. It felt good to help, to build something from the ground up. One evening, after a long meeting with them, I sat at my desk in the apartment, looking at the vision board. There was a photo of a beach in Thailand, a skyscraper in New York, a sketch of a house I'd always wanted. I grabbed a thumbtack and added something new: invest in Sasha and Omar. It wasn't just about the money. I wanted to support their dream, wanted to see it grow. The runs kept me sane. Every morning I pushed a little harder, ran a little farther. My body was changing, shoulders wider, legs stronger. But it was more than that. I stopped feeling like that guy who stood there holding that divorced t-shirt. I stopped waiting for her to call, to apologize, to make things right. She didn't matter anymore. The apartment wasn't a battlefield yet, but it was getting there. The plans, the ideas, the life I was building for myself. I'd taken the bracelet back that night, but now I was taking everything else, and it felt damn good, rising above the wreckage. I was sitting in my office one afternoon, sunlight streaming through the blinds, when my phone vibrated with a text from an old friend, Mark. He wasn't close with her, not really, but he ran in the same circles, so I figured he'd heard something. "You okay, man?" the text read. "Heard she's not doing so hot." I didn't reply right away. I leaned back in my chair, the hum of the office around me, phones ringing, keyboards clacking, and considered it. Not so hot? Good. I didn't wish her ill, but I wasn't about to weep for her either. Lately, I'd been pouring everything into my own life: work, running, Sasha and Omar's startup. And I felt stronger than I had in years. If she was faltering, that was on her. Mark texted again an hour later. "Damien quit. She's flailing at work." That caught my attention. Damien Rivera, her guiding light, the guy she'd toasted at the party while I stood there like an idiot holding that t-shirt. He'd quit. I didn't know the details, neither did Mark, just that it was sudden. But I could picture it. She'd leaned on him, built her whole image around him, and now he was gone. I didn't smile, but I didn't feel bad either. I went back to my spreadsheet, the numbers blurring for a moment before I refocused. Work was my anchor now. Gregory had put me in charge of 2 more projects, big ones, and the word promotion kept floating in the air. I stayed late that evening, the office emptying out until it was just me and the glow of my computer screen. I liked the quiet. It gave me space to think. The next day, another friend, Lisa, called. She was closer to her, one of those mutual acquaintances I hadn't cut off yet. "She tried to launch a podcast," Lisa said, her voice hesitant, as if she wasn't sure I'd want to hear it. "It flopped. 1 episode, and people hated it." I was driving home, phone on speaker, the city lights streaking past. "Huh," I said, trying to keep it brief. Lisa continued. "She's posting online again, trying to get her followers back, but it's not working. People keep bringing up the party." I gripped the steering wheel a little tighter. The party, that damn t-shirt. I didn't say much, just let Lisa talk until she ran out of steam. "Thanks for the heads up," I said and hung up. I didn't need to hear anymore. She was falling apart, and I wasn't surprised. She had always been good at shining when things were easy, when someone else, me, Damien, whoever, was holding her up. Now the props were gone, and she didn't know how to stand. Meanwhile, my life was picking up speed. Gregory called me into his office a week later, slapped a folder down on his desk and said, "You're speaking at the seminar next month. Local business event. They asked for you." I blinked. "Me?" He laughed his loud, booming laugh. Yeah, you. You've been tearing it up lately. People are noticing. I walked out of there feeling 10 feet tall. The seminar wasn't a huge deal, but it was mine, something I'd earned. Then something bigger came. An email landed in my inbox from a guy I'd met at a conference years ago, some hotshot professor. We're holding a business summit in Dubai, the email read. Would love to have you speak as a guest lecturer. Your name's been coming up. Dubai. I stared at the screen, the words slowly sinking in. I'd gone from the guy paying for her party to the guy getting invited halfway across the world. I said yes, of course. That night I met Sasha and Omar at the diner again. Their app was growing slowly, messily, but growing, and I'd put in a bit of money, a small chunk of my savings. You're our secret weapon, Sasha said, grinning over his fries. Omar nodded, quieter but just as excited. I felt useful, needed, in a way I never had with her. Back at the apartment, I added Dubai to my vision board, right next to Thailand and the house sketch. The runs kept me grounded, every morning pounding the pavement, my breath condensing in the cold air. I was doing 6 miles now, my body leaner, my mind sharper. She was fading, her job, her podcast, her online presence, and I was rising, seminars, lectures, startups. The world that had once revolved around her was turning towards me, and I wasn't looking back. I didn't hate her, I didn't even really think about her much. But knowing she was struggling while I ascended felt like justice, quiet and clean, and one I didn't have to fight for. The quiet triumph. I was sorting through some old papers in the apartment one evening, the lamp casting a warm glow on my desk, when I found it, an envelope, tucked between a stack of tax returns and random receipts. It wasn't from Clara or anything official. It was handwritten, her familiar looping script etching my name across the front. I paused for a second, my fingers hovering over it. I hadn't heard from her in weeks, not since the texts had stopped and the divorce papers were signed. Part of me wanted to toss it straight into the trash, unopened, but curiosity won out. I pulled it free, the paper crisp and heavy, and unfolded the 4 pages of her words staring back at me. I sat down, the chair creaking beneath me, and began to read. I didn't mean it, she wrote first, her pen pressing hard into the paper as if she needed me to feel it. The t-shirt was supposed to be funny, a silly joke. I didn't think you'd leave. I stopped there, my jaw clenching. A joke, that's what she called it, even now. 60 people watching, Damien smirking beside her, me holding that divorce t-shirt like some prop in her comedy show. I continued. She filled the pages with apologies, explanations, memories. Remember the beach trip 2 years ago? She wrote. You carried me through the sand when I twisted my ankle. We were good then. Yes, we were. I remembered that day, tanned, laughing, her clinging to my back as the waves crashed around us. But that was before the moves, before the sacrifices, before the slow drift where I became the guy who paid for everything while she chased her spotlight. She went on, her tone shifting, softening. I miss you. I didn't realize how much I needed you until you were gone. I put the letter down for a minute, staring at the wall. Needed me? She needed me to plan her party, to finance her dreams, to stand there while she thanked Damien. But me, the real me, not the husband who went along with everything, she hadn't needed that guy in a long time. I picked it up again, turning to the last page. I'm sorry, she wrote, over and over like a mantra. I messed up. I want to fix it. Fix it? I almost laughed. What was there to fix? The marriage was over, the papers signed, the apartment separated, her things gone. She'd handed me that t-shirt and thought I'd just shrug, come back, continue playing my part. I read the whole thing once from beginning to end, then folded it neatly in half. I didn't tear it up or burn it like some dramatic movie scene. I just opened the drawer beside my desk, the one where my birth certificate, passport, and a few old photos lay, and slid it in. It wasn't trash, not entirely. It was a record, a proof of who I was, who she was, and what we'd lost. But it didn't change anything. I didn't write back. I didn't call her. I'd spent years waiting for her to see me, to say something like this, and now that she had, it didn't matter. The words were too late. too empty. I stood up, got a glass of water, and stood by the window looking out at the city lights. The vision board was tacked nearby. Dubai, Thailand, Sasha and Omar's startup. That's where my mind was now, not in her letter, not in the past. I thought about the party again, about that smirk on her face when she'd handed me that bag. She didn't mean it? Bullshit. She meant every second of it. Meant to gloat, to showcase her new life with Damien to everyone. And now that he was gone, her career unraveling, she was flailing, reaching for the safety net I'd always been. I wasn't that guy anymore. The next morning, I ran my usual route, the air crisp and sharp in my lungs. 6 miles had turned into 7, my legs working harder, my mind clear. I didn't think about the letter. I thought about the seminar next week, the lecture in Dubai, the app launching with Sasha and Omar. When I got back, I showered, got dressed, and headed to work. Gregory stopped me in the hallway, grinning. "You're on fire lately," he said. "Keep it up." I nodded, feeling my own weight. Not hers, not anymore, but my own. The letter stayed in the drawer, a ghost I didn't have to fight. She could miss me all she wanted. I didn't miss her anymore. The unspoken truth. I started writing one evening after a long day at work, sitting at my desk with a beer in my hand, the city humming outside my window. It wasn't planned, just picked up a notebook and let my thoughts spill onto the pages. At first it was messy, raw, all about the party, the t-shirt, those 157 missed calls. I wrote about what it felt like to stand there, humiliated, while she smirked and the room chuckled. I wrote about walking out, taking the bracelet, driving away. It wasn't for anyone else, just for me, a way to get it out of my head and onto paper. But the more I wrote, the more it shifted into something else. It wasn't just about her or us anymore. It was about what came after, the running every morning, the rebuilding of my life, the way I'd said no to the old self who waited for her approval. I filled pages with it night after night, the words piling up like bricks in a wall I was building around myself. One evening, after a run, I typed it all up on my laptop. It looked different on the screen, cleaner, sharper. I don't know why, but I hit publish on a random blogging site. No name, just some anonymous guy's story. I titled it 157 Missed Calls, not because I wanted her to see it, but because it fit. Then I forgot about it. A week later, I checked the site. There were comments, dozens of them. "This is my life," one said. "I felt every word," another echoed. People I didn't know from places I'd never been were reading it, finding resonance in it. I sat there staring at the screen, my heart pounding. It wasn't just my story anymore. It was theirs, too. I kept writing. Every few days I'd post something new. How I started running to feel alive again, how work became my lifeboat, how I stopped caring what she thought. The blog grew. Hundreds of views turned into thousands. Emails started coming in, people thanking me, asking questions. "How did you cope?" one asked. "What do you do when you feel stuck?" another wrote. I answered them, not like some expert, but like me, someone who'd been there, who was figuring it out one step at a time. It wasn't about her downfall or my revenge. It was about choosing myself, waking up every day and building something new. One morning over coffee with Theo, I told him about it. "It's a blog," I said, shrugging as if it were nothing. "People like it." He raised an eyebrow, a smirk playing on his lips. "You're a writer now, Mr. Big Shot." I laughed. "Nah, just a guy with a laptop." But it was more than that. The next week, a woman stopped me at a downtown coffee shop. "Are you the guy from 157? She asked, her eyes wide. I froze, my cup halfway to my mouth. Maybe." She smiled. "I read your posts. They helped me through my breakup. Thank you." I didn't know what to say, just nodded, mumbling something about being glad I could help. She walked away and I sat there, stunned. It was real now, not just words on a screen. People were finding me, recognizing me. The blog snowballed into a movement. I launched a newsletter, then a social media page. 157 Missed Calls became a brand of sorts. Readers called it that, shared it, made it their own. Companies reached out, offering speaking gigs, asking me to write for them. I took a few small gigs at first, like a local seminar where I talked about rebuilding after betrayal. 50 people showed up, hanging on my every word, applauding when I finished. Then came the bigger ones: panel discussions, podcasts, a guest article for a magazine. I wasn't anonymous anymore. I signed my name, took ownership. Sasha and Omar got in on it too. "You gotta merchandise this," Sasha said one night at the diner, his laptop open to the app's latest numbers. "T-shirts, man. Not divorced, but something better." I laughed, but he was serious. We tossed ideas around and I liked it. Not for the money, but for the meaning. "Rebuilt," I finally said. "That's the word." They nodded, and a week later I had a prototype. A black t-shirt, simple white letters, "Rebuilt." It wasn't about her, it was about me, about everyone who read the blog and found their way back. The movement was growing, and I was growing with it. I wasn't just the guy who walked away anymore. I was the guy who kept moving forward. The storm at my door. Rain lashed down one evening when I heard a knock at my apartment door. I was just tuning my guitar, something I'd picked up again after years of it gathering dust. The sound was sharp, insistent, 3 quick raps over the drumming of water against the windows. I set the guitar down, my stomach clenching for no discernible reason, and walked over. When I opened the door, she was standing there. No umbrella, no coat, just her, soaked to the bone. Her hair plastered to her face, mascara streaking her cheeks, and for a second I didn't recognize her. Not the polished version I knew, the one who'd smirked at me under the party lights. She looked small, fragile, as if the rain had washed away everything she used to be. "Can I come in?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. I didn't say anything at first, just stepped aside and let her pass. She dripped onto the floor, leaving small puddles near the couch, but I didn't care. I closed the door and turned to face her, arms crossed, waiting. She didn't sit, just stood there, hugging herself as if she were cold. "I miss you," she finally said, her eyes fixed on mine. "We were happy." I didn't move, didn't blink. The words hung in the air, heavy and damp, but they didn't pierce me like they once might have. "No," I said, my voice even. "I was good. You just got lucky." She flinched, as if I'd struck her, and then the tears came. Quiet at first, then louder, her shoulders shaking. "I messed up," she sobbed through her words. "I know, the party, Damien, all of it. I was stupid. I didn't want to lose you." I watched her, this woman I'd loved for years, weeping in my living room, and waited to feel something. Anger, pity, anything. But nothing came. I'd already processed all of it. The hurt, the betrayal, the slow realization that I'd been invisible to her. I'd mourned it for months, mile by mile on my morning runs, page by page in my blog. She continued, the words tumbling out. "I thought I could do it without you. The job, the podcast, everything. It's all gone now. Damien's left and I'm drowning and I need you." And there it was again. Need. She needed me now, when her world was crumbling, when the spotlight she chased had dimmed. I took a step closer, not to comfort her, but to make sure she heard me. "You didn't need me when you handed me that t-shirt," I said. "You didn't need me when you thanked him instead of me. You can't need me now." Her face crumpled and she sank onto the couch, covering her face with her hands. I didn't sit. I stood looking down at her and saw it all. The party, the calls, the letter she'd sent. This was her last play, her final attempt to reel me back in. But I wasn't that guy anymore. "I'm sorry," she whispered over and over, as if it could change anything. I didn't say anything. What was there to say? She'd made her choice that night, and I'd made mine when I walked out. The rain kept drumming outside, a steady roar that filled the silence between us. After a while, she stood up, wiping her face with her sleeve. "I'll go," she said, her voice quiet. I nodded, opened the door, and watched her walk back into the storm. She didn't look back, just disappeared into the darkness, the rain consuming her. I closed the door, locked it, and stood for a minute, listening to the quiet. It was over. Truly over. Not the divorce, not the papers, but that part of me that still wondered if she'd come back. She had, and it didn't matter. Later that night, I called Theo. "You free?" I asked. He was, so I grabbed my guitar and headed over. The rain had slowed to a drizzle by then, the streets slick and gleaming under the streetlights. We ended up on his rooftop, the city spread out below, the damp air cool against my skin. I strummed a few chords, he tapped a rhythm on the railing, and we didn't talk about her. We didn't need to. The music filled the space, raw and simple, and for the first time in a long time, I felt peace. Not a loud peace, but a quiet, steady one that settled deep in my bones. She was gone, and I was still here. Triumph in Milan. I stood backstage in Milan, the hum of the crowd seeping through the heavy curtain, my hands steady but my heart beating a little faster than usual. It had been exactly 1 year since that night. The party, the t-shirt, the moment I walked away and took my life back. Now I was here, in an elegant convention center halfway across the world, about to deliver the keynote address to a packed room, rebuilding after betrayal. That was the event's theme, and my name was printed in bold on the program. I adjusted my tie, smoothed down my suit jacket, and took a deep breath. The stage manager gave me a nod, and I walked out into the spotlight. The applause washed over me in a wave, hundreds of faces looking up, waiting. I approached the microphone, the click of my dress shoes echoing loudly in my ears, and for a second I saw it all again. The rooftop venue, her smirk, that divorced t-shirt in my hands. Then I smiled. "I once paid for a birthday party where I received a t-shirt that read 'Divorced,'" I began, my voice clear and strong. A quiet chuckle rippled through the crowd, a gentle wave, but I didn't stop. 5 minutes later, I took back the gift I'd given her, and my entire life along with it. They quieted, leaning forward, and I continued. I told them about the 157 missed calls, about walking out that night and never looking back. I spoke of the dawn runs, the late nights at work, the blog that had become a movement. I didn't mention her name, I didn't need to. It wasn't about her anymore. It was about me, about the people in that room who had been broken and put themselves back together. I told them about signing the divorce papers with Clara, about pouring myself into Sasha and Omar's startup, about standing on Theo's rooftop, playing my guitar in the rain. "Betrayal doesn't destroy you," I said, looking out at them. "It's a door, and you decide if you walk through it." The words flowed easily, truthfully, and when I finished, the applause roared, loud and long, shaking the room. I stepped back, my chest tight, but not from pain, from something else. Pride, perhaps. Or just the sheer realization that I'd made it. Backstage, people surrounded me, organizers, attendees, a guy with a podcast microphone asking for a quick interview. I agreed to him, to a few others, shaking hands, smiling, feeling the sheer energy of it all. Later, I sat in my hotel room, the Milan skyline shimmering outside the window, and pulled out my phone. I scrolled through the blog comments, new ones from that day, from people who had been in the audience. "You changed my life," one wrote. "I'm walking through that door," another said. I put the phone down and leaned back, a quiet settling over me. A year ago, I was the guy who paid for everything, the cake, the flowers, her dreams, only to walk away with nothing but a t-shirt and a bruised ego. Now I was here, speaking in Milan, Dubai behind me, and new invitations kept rolling in. Sasha and Omar's app had launched last month, and I'd worn a rebuilt t-shirt to their party, grinning as they toasted me. Theo had texted me that morning, "1 year, man, you're a legend." I didn't feel like a legend. I felt like myself. Stronger, sure, but still the same guy who liked his coffee too bitter and his runs too long. The bracelet was still in my desk drawer back home next to her letter, but I hadn't looked at it in months. It didn't matter anymore. She didn't matter. I heard through Lisa that she'd moved somewhere, started a new life, but I didn't ask for details. That chapter was closed. I stood up, poured a glass of water, and walked to the window. The city spread out below, the horizon wide, limitless, and I thought about what came next. More speaking, maybe a book, helping Sasha and Omar scale their business. The blog was a brand now, 157 missed calls, a call to action for people like me who had turned pain into power. I answered one call that night, the one I'd made to myself when I walked away. It wasn't about revenge. It never was. It was about rebirth, about choosing to keep going when the world expected you to fall. The applause of the crowd still echoed in my mind, not for her, not for us, but for me. I raised my glass to the skyline, a silent toast to the man I'd become, and knew I'd never stop moving forward.